Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Elias Thorne. If you're new here, we specialize in immersive, long-form mystery stories, perfect for relaxing evenings, commutes, or those quiet moments when you crave a good whodunit. Today, I'm thrilled to present an original tale inspired by the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. It's titled Blood in the Candlelight Atrium. Chapter 1. The stage is set in the autumn of 1927. The Sussex countryside glowed with the russet and gold of turning leaves, a tapestry of fleeting beauty that seemed to whisper secrets to those who paused to listen. At the heart of this pastoral splendor stood Candlelight Manor, a sprawling estate of weathered stone, its turrets piercing the sky like the ambitions of its owners. Ivy clung to its walls, softening the edges of a history steeped in wealth, power, and whispers of scandal. The manor's crowning glory was its atrium, a vast glass-domed chamber where exotic orchids and ferns flourished beneath a constellation of candlelight. By day, sunlight streamed through the dome, bathing the greenery in a golden haze. By night, hundreds of beeswax candles transformed the space into a cathedral of flickering shadows, a place where beauty and mystery intertwined. Lord Reginald Harrington, the manor's master, was a figure as commanding as his home. At 65, he carried his years with the vigor of a younger man, his broad shoulders filling out tailored suits, his thick mustache a testament to an era when such adornments were a gentleman's pride. His eyes, sharp and gray as a winter sea, missed little, whether it was a misstep in a business deal or a glance laden with hidden meaning. The Harrington fortune, built on colonial trade, spices from India, silks from China, and rumors of less savory ventures in opium, had elevated the family to the upper echelons of British society. Yet Reginald's charm was tempered by a biting wit, and his generosity often came with strings, as his guests were about to discover. This October, Lord Harrington had summoned a select group to Candlelight Manor for his annual autumn gathering, an event known as much for its opulence as for the tensions it unearthed. The guest list was a carefully curated ensemble, each member tethered to the host by bonds of blood, obligation, or resentment. The first to arrive was Lady Evelyn Harrington, his wife of 30 years. At 52, she retained a porcelain beauty, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon, her emerald eyes catching the light like the gems she favored. Their marriage, once a blaze of passion, had cooled into a brittle alliance. Society gossips whispered of Evelyn's dalliances with younger men, a rumor she neither confirmed nor denied. Her serene smile a shield against scrutiny, yet her fingers betrayed her, constantly twisting a sapphire ring, a nervous habit that spoke of unease beneath her polished exterior. Their children followed. Victor Harrington, the eldest at 35, was a man whose charm outstripped his discipline. With his father's broad frame and a disarming grin, he cut a dashing figure, but his eyes, restless, shadowed, hinted at troubles. Victor's gambling debts were the family's open secret, a drain on the estate that had sparked heated rows with his father. "You'll ruin us," Reginald had roared during one such clash, overheard by servants and guests alike. Victor's response was always a shrug, a quip about luck turning, but his muddy boots and late-night absences suggested debts were not his only vice. Amelia Harrington, at 28, was Victor's opposite, a woman of sharp intellect and fiercer independence. Her dark curls framed a face that could shift from warm to defiant in a heartbeat. An enthusiast of modern art, she dreamed of studying in Paris, far from the manor's stifling traditions. Her father dismissed her passion as bohemian nonsense, but Amelia's sketches, vibrant with color and rebellion, lined her room's walls. Whispers suggested she had a secret suitor, an artist perhaps, fueling her desire for freedom and her need for funds. The household's silent sentinel was Mr. Edgar Wilkins, the butler who had served the Harringtons for 40 years. At 60, Wilkins moved with the precision of a clock, his black suit immaculate, his gray hair slicked back. His face, lined but impassive, revealed nothing, yet his eyes, dark, watchful, saw everything, from hidden passages to creaking floorboards. Wilkins knew the manor's secrets better than its owners. Recently, however, a shadow had fallen over his service. Lord Harrington Harrington had accused him of stealing silverware, a charge Wilkins denied with quiet fury. The threat of dismissal loomed, and with it the loss of a pension that was his only security. Among the guests was Colonel Marcus Blackwell, a retired military man whose barrel chest and booming voice filled any room. At 58, his ruddy face and bristling mustache spoke of campaigns in Africa and India, but his tales of glory masked a simmering grievance. Blackwell had invested heavily in one of Harrington's ventures, a shipping line that collapsed spectacularly, losing a fortune that left him on the brink of ruin. Reginald promised returns, he'd growled to anyone who'd listen, his hand gripping his brandy glass as if it were his host's throat. The final guest was Miss Lydia Thorne, a distant cousin whose arrival was as unexpected as it was intriguing. At 25, Lydia presented herself as an aspiring novelist, her wide hazel eyes and earnest smile disarming even the skeptical. She carried a leather-bound notebook, scribbling observations with a fervor that suggested more than literary ambition. Rumors swirled that she sought a claim to the Harrington estate, tied to a murky branch of the family tree. Her invitation, she claimed, came from Lord Harrington himself, though no one could recall him mentioning it. And then there was Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his egg-shaped head, meticulously waxed mustache, and piercing green eyes, was an anomaly among the English gentry. Invited at Lady Evelyn's insistence, she had read of his triumphs in the society pages. Poirot had accepted out of curiosity. The English countryside, he often mused, was a fertile ground for crime, its polite facades hiding passions as wild as any in London's underbelly. Accompanying him was Captain Arthur Hastings, his steadfast friend, whose bluff, honest demeanor provided a foil to Poirot's eccentricity. Hastings, with his neatly parted hair and military bearing, viewed the weekend as a chance for rest, though Poirot's knowing smile suggested otherwise. As the guests gathered in the atrium for pre-dinner cocktails, the air was heavy with the scent of beeswax and blooming jasmine. The glass dome overhead caught the candlelight, scattering it like stars across a velvet sky. Servants glided silently, offering crystal flutes of champagne, while a string quartet played softly in a corner. Lord Harrington, resplendent in a velvet smoking jacket, raised his glass in a toast. To old friends, new beginnings, and secrets that stay buried, he declared, his voice rich with amusement. The guests laughed, but the sound was brittle, undercut by sidelong glances and tightened smiles. Victor clinked glasses with Blackwell, though his eyes flicked to his father, wary. Amelia stood apart, sketching a fern in her notebook, her lips pursed as if resisting an argument. Lady Evelyn's laughter was bright but brief, her hand lingering on Blackwell's arm a moment too long. Wilkins, overseeing the servants, adjusted a candle with precision, but his jaw was tight. Lydia Thorne hovered near the lord, her questions about family history too pointed to be casual. Poirot, sipping a sirop de cassis, stood with Hastings near a towering orchid. "Mon ami," he murmured, his voice low, "observe the players. This atrium, it is a stage, and the actors, they wear masks. The air, it hums with motives." Hastings chuckled, adjusting his cufflinks. "You're dramatizing, Poirot. It's just a party. Too much champagne, perhaps." "Nah, Hastings. The champagne, it loosens tongues, but the candlelight, it hides truths. Mark my words, this manner will reveal its heart before the weekend is done." As the evening deepened, the guests moved to the oak-paneled dining room, where silver gleamed under chandeliers, and the promise of secrets lingered like the scent of wax. The atrium's locked doors, secured for privacy, seemed to seal in more than just the warmth. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and the candles burned low, casting shadows that danced like specters of things to come. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. The dining room of Candlelight Manor glowed with the opulence of a bygone era. Oak-paneled walls, polished to a deep sheen, reflected the light of crystal chandeliers, their prisms scattering rainbows across the long mahogany table. Silver cutlery gleamed beside bone china plates, and the air was rich with the aromas of roast pheasant, truffled potatoes, and a 1911 Bordeaux poured generously by the silent-footed footman. Lord Reginald Harrington presided at the head of the table, his presence commanding yet laced with a playful irony, as if he relished the undercurrents of unease among his guests. The autumn gathering, now in full swing, had moved from cocktails in the atrium to this lavish dinner where conversation danced like the candle flames, bright, fleeting, and occasionally sharp. Lady Evelyn Harrington, seated opposite her husband, was a vision in sapphire silk, her auburn hair catching the light like embers. Her smile was practiced, but her fingers toyed with the stem of her wineglass, betraying a restlessness that Hercule Poirot, seated midway down the table, noted with interest. Victor Harrington, the heir, lounged to his father's right, his handsome face flushed from wine and bravado. He dominated the talk with tales of London's racing scene, his voice loud to mask the nervous glance he cast at his father. "The chestnut mare at Ascot, she's a sure bet," he declared, ignoring Lord Harrington's raised eyebrow. Amelia Harrington, across from her brother, steered the conversation elsewhere. "The new Matisse exhibit in London is divine," she said, her dark eyes alight with passion. "His use of color, it's like music on canvas." Colonel Marcus Blackwell beside her snorted, "Art? Give me a good cavalry charge any day. More substance." His ruddy face was set, but his hand gripped his fork a touch too tightly, a sign of the grudge he nursed against his host. Mr. Edgar Wilkins, the butler, moved like a shadow, overseeing the service with an almost mechanical precision. His black suit was immaculate, his gray hair slicked back, but Poirot caught a faint tremor in his hand as he refilled the Lord's glass, a crack in his stoic facade. Miss Lydia Thorne, the aspiring novelist, sat quietly, her hazel eyes darting from face to face, her leather-bound notebook tucked discreetly beside her plate. She scribbled occasionally, claiming inspiration, but her questions about the Harrington lineage earlier had been too pointed for mere curiosity. Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot's companion, leaned toward the detective, whispering, "Quite the crowd, eh? All this talk of horses and paintings, it's like they're dodging something." Poirot's green eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, they dodge not something but many things. The heart of this manor beats with secrets." As the meal drew to a close, Lord Harrington rose, glass in hand, his moustache twitching with mischief. "A toast," he announced, "to family, friends, and the ties that bind, however frayed they may be." Laughter rippled, but it was strained. Evelyn's smile tightened. Victor's chuckle was forced. Amelia's eyes flicked to the ceiling. Blackwell drained his glass in one gulp, and Wilkins, standing by the door, seemed to freeze for a moment. Then came the surprise. Lord Harrington reached into his velvet jacket and produced a sealed envelope. "A bit of fun," he said, his voice rich with irony. "My will, revised just last month. Shall we see who's in my good graces?" The room stilled. Forks pausing mid-air, he broke the seal with a flourish and read aloud, "To Evelyn, my townhouse in Mayfair, and a generous annuity. To Victor the manor, provided he clears his debts within a year. To Amelia, funds for her artistic whims, if she settles down. To Colonel Blackwell, repayment of his losses with interest. To Wilkins, a pension for loyal service. And to Cousin Lydia, a modest bequest for family ties." The silence was deafening. Motives, Poirot thought, had just been laid bare like a hand of cards. Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came. Victor's face darkened, his fingers crumpling his napkin. Amelia's jaw set, her dreams of Paris now tethered to her father's terms. Blackwell's eyes narrowed, his debt acknowledged but not erased. Wilkins's expression remained unreadable, but his posture stiffened. Lydia's pen scratched furiously, her innocence suddenly suspect. "Dinner is over," Lord Harrington said, folding the envelope. "I've business in my study. Enjoy the atrium's brandy and cigars." He exited through a private door connecting the dining room to the atrium, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The guests dispersed slowly, some lingering over coffee, others drifting to the atrium, where the air was warm with candlelight and the scent of exotic blooms. Poirot and Hastings remained in the dining room a moment longer, the detective's gaze fixed on the atrium door. "The will, Hastings. It is a spark in a powder keg. Each guest now sees a path to gain, or a loss to avenge." Hastings frowned. "You think someone's plotting already?" It's just a rich man's game. Non, mon ami. Games have rules. This is chaos waiting to erupt. They joined the others in the atrium, where the glass dome soared above, reflecting the glow of hundreds of candles in ornate holders. The space felt alive, the flickering flames casting shadows that danced across the ferns and orchids. Victor stood by a marble fountain, arguing softly with Amelia, who gestured sharply. Evelyn conversed with Blackwell, her laughter too bright. Lydia sat on a wrought iron bench, sketching the scene, her eyes flicking to the private door. Wilkins adjusted a candelabra, his movements deliberate but his gaze distant. As midnight neared, the quartet packed away their instruments and the servants began to clear the glasses. Poirot, sipping a brandy, stood near a towering palm, his senses alert. The air, Hastings, it grows heavy. Something stirs. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night, high and piercing, echoing. Off the glass dome. It came from the atrium itself. The guests froze, glasses clattering, faces paling. Evelyn clutched her throat. Victor spun toward the sound. Amelia dropped her sketchbook. Blackwell bellowed, "What the devil?" Wilkins, already at the atrium's main doors, fumbled with his keys, but they were locked from within, as they had been all evening for privacy. "Quickly," Poirot urged, his small frame darting toward the private door to the study. It, too, was locked. Wilkins produced a master key, his hands shaking, and the door swung open. The guests poured into the atrium proper, where the candlelight now seemed dim, almost mournful. There, in the center of the room, lay Lord Reginald Harrington, face down on a Persian rug, a pool of blood spreading beneath him. A jeweled dagger, its hilt encrusted with emeralds, protruded from his back, glinting in the flickering light. Around him, candles had guttered out, their wax pooling like tears. A heavy silver candle holder lay toppled nearby, its base smeared with blood. The atrium's main doors and windows remained bolted, the glass dome intact, with no sign of forced entry. An impossible crime. Evelyn screamed again, collapsing into Amelia's arms. Victor stared, his face ashen. "Father, no!" Blackwell barked. "Nobody move. This is a crime scene." Lydia hovered at the edge, her notebook clutched to her chest, eyes wide but calculating. Wilkins knelt briefly, checking the locks again. "Impossible," he muttered. "The doors were secured. I locked them myself." Poirot crouched beside the body, his gloved hands hovering over the dagger. It was an antique from the Manor's collection, usually displayed on the atrium's west wall. The blood was fresh, the wound deep. He noted the victim's pocket watch, stopped at 11:45, its glass cracked. A faint scent lingered. Lilac, perhaps, or something sweeter. The toppled candle holder caught his eye. Its wax had hardened in a peculiar pattern, as if disturbed mid-flow. Hastings, pale, whispered, "Good Lord, Poirot, how could this happen? The room was locked." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot replied, his voice calm but his eyes alight. "A locked room, a dagger, a dead man. The puzzle, it is exquisite, but the little gray cells, they are already at work." The storm outside roared, rattling the dome, as the guests stood in a circle, each face a mask of shock, or perhaps something else. Poirot rose, his gaze sweeping over them. "Mesdames et messieurs, a crime has been committed, and the murderer is among us." Chapter 3. The investigation begins. The atrium of Candlelight Manor, once a haven of candlelit elegance, now felt like a stage frozen in the aftermath of tragedy. The glass dome overhead loomed dark, rattled by the storm that battered the Sussex countryside, its winds howling like mourners at a wake. Lord Reginald Harrington's body lay at the center of the room, his blood staining the Persian rug a deep crimson, the jeweled dagger still embedded in his back. The toppled candle holder nearby cast a forlorn shadow, its wax hardened in erratic patterns as if the flames themselves had recoiled from the crime. The main doors and windows remained bolted from within, the private door to the study locked until Mr. Wilkins, the butler, had opened it with his master key. An impossible murder, sealed within a chamber of glass and light. Hercule Poirot stood over the body, his small frame poised with purpose, his green eyes scanning every detail. His gloved hands hovered near the dagger, an Indian antique from the Manor's collection, its emerald-encrusted hilt glinting faintly. The victim's pocket watch, stopped at 11:45, lay cracked beside him, a silent witness to the moment of death. A faint scent, lilac or perhaps jasmine, lingered in the air, teasing Poirot's senses. Mon Dieu, he murmured, this puzzle, it is exquisite. A locked room, a dagger, a man dead. Yet the little grey cells, they begin to stir. Captain Arthur Hastings, pale but resolute, stood nearby, his military bearings strained by the scene. Poirot, it's madness. The doors were locked, the windows sealed. No one could have gotten in or out. Suicide, perhaps? Non, Hastings, Poirot replied, his voice calm but firm. The angle of the dagger, it is impossible for self-infliction. The blade enters high, between the shoulder blades, with force. This is murder, most deliberate. He gestured to the room. And the murderer, they are clever, but not so clever as Poirot. The guests, gathered in a tense semicircle, were a study in shock and suspicion. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her sapphire gown now crumpled, clung to her daughter Amelia, her face pale beneath her auburn hair. Victor Harrington, the heir, stood rigid, his eyes darting between the body and the locked doors, his hands clenched into fists. Colonel Marcus Blackwell, his ruddy face set, barked orders to no one in particular. Keep back! Don't touch anything! Miss Lydia Thorne, the novelist cousin, hovered at the edge, her notebook clutched tightly, her wide hazel eyes taking in every detail. Mr. Wilkins, the butler, stood by the private door, his stoic mask slipping as he muttered, "The locks, I checked them myself." The storm delayed the local authorities, but as dawn broke, gray and misty, a burly figure arrived. Inspector Japp, a familiar face to Poirot from past cases. With him came 2 constables, their boots tracking mud into the manor's pristine halls. Japp surveyed the scene, his mustache twitching. Another fine mess, eh, Poirot? Locked room, dagger in the back. You'll tell me it's not as simple as it looks? Simple? Poirot's mustache curved slightly. Non, mon ami. This is a tapestry of deception, and we must unravel it thread by thread. Japp sealed the atrium, posting a constable at the door, and ordered the guests to the drawing room for questioning. The room, with its velvet drapes and roaring fire, offered warmth but little comfort. The guests sat uneasily, Evelyn on a chaise longue, Victor pacing, Amelia sketching nervously in her notebook, Blackwell glowering by the hearth, Lydia perched with her pen poised, and Wilkins standing rigidly by the door. Poirot, at the center, began his methodical inquiry, his voice soft but commanding, like a conductor coaxing a symphony from chaos. First, the timeline, he said. Lord Harrington left for his study at approximately 11:30, yes? The scream was heard near midnight. Who was where? Lady Evelyn spoke first, her voice trembling but composed. I retired to my bedroom after dinner to read. I heard the scream and came running. Her fingers twisted her sapphire ring, and Poirot noted the faint lilac scent on her handkerchief, matching the atrium's air. Victor, his voice hoarse, said, I was in the gardens, walking off the wine. The storm didn't bother me. His shoes, Poirot observed, bore traces of mud, but the garden paths were dry before the rain began at 11 coups. A discrepancy? Amelia, her dark curls falling loose, said, I was in the library with Lydia, discussing her novel. We heard the scream and rushed to the atrium. Her fingers smudged with charcoal suggested sketching, not reading. Lydia nodded, her voice earnest. Amelia's right. We were together. I'm just a cousin. Why would I harm him? Her notebook, Poirot noted, was filled with sketches of the atrium, not just prose. Colonel Blackwell, his voice gruff, said, I was in my room, smoking a cigar, alone, heard the scream, came down. His jacket pocket bulged slightly. Cigars or something else. Wilkins, his face pale, said, I was in the kitchen, preparing nightcaps. The staff can confirm. But his tremor returned, and Poirot's eyes lingered on the butler's keys dangling from his belt. Japp scribbled notes, but Poirot's questions grew sharper. Madame Evelyn, this lilac scent, it is yours, yes? She flushed. My perfume, yes, but I wasn't in the atrium after dinner. To Victor, the garden, monsieur, at 11:30, in a storm? Curious. Victor's jaw tightened. I like the rain. To Amelia and Lydia, the library, mesdemoiselles, yet your sketches, Miss Thorne, are of the atrium. Inspiration or observation? Lydia stammered. Just imagination. To Blackwell, "A cigar, Colonel, yet the atrium smells faintly of tobacco." "Careless?" Blackwell bristled. "I smoke everywhere." To Wilkins, "The dagger, it was on the wall that morning. Who had access?" Wilkins replied, "Anyone, sir. It was displayed openly." Poirot returned to the atrium, Jap trailing him. The detective examined the scene anew. The dagger's angle suggested a tall assailant, or a clever method. The toppled candle holder intrigued him. Its wax formed a trail as if dragged briefly before falling. The watch stopped at 11:45 was no accident. Its mechanism was jammed, perhaps struck during a struggle. The lilac scent was strongest near the body, yet no guest admitted to being there. A constable reported a find, a torn glove in the garden monogrammed with VH. Victor's face paled when shown it. "Lost it weeks ago," he muttered, but his eyes avoided Poirot's. Back in the drawing room, whispers turned to accusations. Victor pointed at Wilkins. "You had the keys. You could have slipped in." Wilkins snapped. "I've served this family faithfully, unlike some who gamble it away." Amelia interjected. "Stop it, Victor. Father argued with you last night about your debts." Victor's face reddened, but he said nothing. Blackwell growled. "Harrington owed me a fortune, but murder? I'm no coward to stab in the back." Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The storm outside Candlelight Manor raged on, its winds clawing at the glass dome of the atrium, where the memory of Lord Reginald Harrington's murder lingered like a spectre. Inside, the drawing room was a cocoon of warmth, its fire crackling against the chill, but the air was thick with suspicion. The guests, Lady Evelyn Harrington, Victor, Amelia, Colonel Marcus Blackwell, Miss Lydia Thorne, and Mr. Edgar Wilkins, sat in uneasy silence, their faces etched with fear, defiance, or calculation. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective, stood before them, his green eyes sharp beneath his egg-shaped head, his mustache impeccably waxed despite the hour. Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend, hovered nearby, jotting notes, while Inspector Japp, the burly Scotland Yard man, paced, his boots thudding on the parquet floor. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice soft yet commanding, "we stand at the heart of a puzzle. Lord Harrington, he is dead, stabbed in a room locked from within. The clues, they whisper, yet some, they lie. Let us see what truths we can uncover." The morning had brought no relief from the storm, trapping the household and delaying forensic aid from London. Japp had grumbled about the weather, but Poirot saw opportunity in isolation. "The manor, it is our laboratory," he told Hastings. "Here, we test the human heart." Poirot resumed his questioning, his tone deliberate, drawing out each suspect's secrets like threads from a tapestry. He began with Lady Evelyn, whose sapphire gown seemed to dim in the grey light. "Madame, the lilac scent in the atrium, it is yours, yes? Yet you claim you were in your bedroom." Evelyn's fingers twisted her sapphire ring. "It's my perfume, yes, but I wasn't there after dinner. Perhaps it lingered from earlier." Her voice was steady, but her eyes flicked to Colonel Blackwell, a gesture Poirot noted. To Victor, "Monsieur, this glove, monogrammed with your initials, found in the garden, yet you say it was lost weeks ago, and your shoes, they carry mud, though the rain began after your alleged walk." Victor's face flushed. "I told you, I misplaced it. As for the mud, the paths were damp earlier. You're barking up the wrong tree, Poirot." Amelia, her dark curls loose, spoke next. "Lydia and I were in the library, as I said. I was sketching, nothing more." Poirot tilted his head. "And yet, mademoiselle, your sketches are of the atrium, detailed as if from memory. Were you there, perhaps, before the scream?" Lydia interjected, her voice earnest. "We were together. My notebook has atrium sketches, yes, but it's for my novel. Imagination, not evidence." Her hazel eyes were wide, but her pen trembled slightly. Colonel Blackwell, his ruddy face stern, said, "I was in my room, smoking, that's all. If there's tobacco in the atrium, it's from earlier. Harrington loved a good cigar." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Yet the ash near the body, it is fresh. A curious oversight, Colonel." Wilkins, the butler, stood rigid. "The dagger was on the wall at 9 p.m. when I checked the atrium. Anyone could have taken it." Poirot nodded. "And your keys, monsieur. They open every lock, including the private door to the study, yes?" Wilkins' jaw tightened. "They do, but I was in the kitchen." Poirot excused the guests to examine the atrium again, Jap and Hastings in tow. The crime scene was untouched, the blood now congealed, the dagger's emeralds catching the dim light. Poirot knelt by the toppled candle holder, its wax forming a trail that suggested movement, dragged perhaps or knocked deliberately. "This wax," he mused, "it is not random, it tells a story." He traced the pattern, noting a faint scratch on the floor beneath, as if something heavy had been pulled. The stopped watch at 11:45 intrigued him further. He examined it closely, discovering a tiny gear jammed, likely from impact. The watch, it was struck, perhaps in a struggle, he told Jap. The lilac scent was fainter now, but still present, strongest near the rug. A constable interrupted, holding a folded paper found in the study tucked inside a book on the desk. It read, "Meet me at midnight, E." The handwriting matched Evelyn's, but she denied it vehemently when shown. "I wrote no such note. Someone's framing me." Her voice cracked, and Blackwell placed a protective hand on her shoulder, a gesture Victor glared at. Poirot's attention shifted to a new find, a smudge of charcoal on the atrium's west wall, near where the dagger had hung. It matched the smudges on Amelia's fingers. "Mademoiselle Amelia, you sketched in the library, yet charcoal is here. Explain." Amelia flushed. I was in the atrium earlier, sketching the dagger for my art. It's striking." Her explanation was plausible, but her hesitation lingered. Another clue surfaced. A servant reported hearing a faint click in the atrium around 11:40, like a latch or mechanism. Wilkins paled. "The ventilation grates, some are loose, but no one uses them." Poirot inspected a grate high on the wall, finding a faint thread caught in its slats. Silk, dyed lilac. "Curieux," he murmured. "A clue or a distraction?" Back in the drawing room, tensions boiled. Victor accused Amelia. "You were sketching the dagger, planning to use it more like. You hated father's control," Amelia snapped. "And you didn't?" "Your debts were drowning us," Blackwell intervened. "Enough. Harrington owed me, but I didn't need to kill him to settle scores." Lydia, scribbling furiously, said, "What about an outsider? A rival from his business days?" Jap scoffed. "No footprints, no forced locks. It's one of you." Poirot's eyes gleamed as he produced a new find, a tiny brass key hidden beneath the rug near the body. It didn't match any known lock in the atrium. "This key," he said, "it is an enigma. Does it open a secret, or is it another lie?" Wilkins' face twitched, but he said nothing. A red herring emerged when a constable found a bloody cloth in the garden near the glove. It bore no monogram, but its presence suggested a hasty disposal. Victor's alibi weakened further, yet the cloth's blood was dry, older than the murder, perhaps unrelated. Poirot gathered the guests again, his voice slow and deliberate. "The clues, they multiply. The note from E. Is it Lady Evelyn's or a forgery? The charcoal smudge, art or evidence? The thread in the grate, accident or design? And this key, what does it unlock? The murderer, they think to outwit Poirot, but the little gray cells, they see through shadows." Evelyn's composure cracked, her handkerchief pressed to her lips. Victor's fists clenched, his eyes on the floor. Amelia's pencil scratched furiously, sketching nothing now. Blackwell's cigar burned low, ash falling unnoticed. Lydia's notebook snapped shut. Wilkins' keys jangled as he shifted. Hastings whispered, "Poirot, it's a tangle. The glove, the note, the key. How do they fit?" Poirot smiled faintly. "Patience, mon ami. The red herrings, they swim to distract, but the truth, it lies in the details." As the storm howled, sealing the manor in its grip, Poirot returned to the atrium, his mind tracing the wax trail, the lilac thread, the jammed watch. The locked room was not impregnable. It was a stage, and the murderer had played their part with cunning. But Poirot, with his relentless logic, was closing in. Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The storm-battering Candlelight Manor showed no sign of relenting, its howls weaving a restless symphony through the glass dome of the atrium, where Lord Reginald Harrington's body had been found just hours ago. The crime scene, now cordoned off by Inspector Jap's constables, was a silent tableau of horror. The blood-soaked Persian rug, the jeweled dagger still embedded in the victim's back, and the toppled candle holder, its wax trail a cryptic map of the murders. Mechanics. The locked doors and sealed windows mocked the notion of an outsider, while the lilac scent, stopped watch, and mysterious brass key whispered of secrets yet to be unlocked. In the drawing room, the air was thick with dread, the fire's warmth doing little to thaw the chill of suspicion among the guests. Hercule Poirot, his egg-shaped head tilted in thought, stood before the assembled suspects. Lady Evelyn Harrington, Victor, Amelia, Colonel Marcus Blackwell, Miss Lydia Thorne, and Mr. Edgar Wilkins. His green eyes gleamed with quiet intensity, his mustache a perfect curve of calm amid the storm. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal scribe, stood ready with his notebook, while Jap, his patience fraying, muttered about the lack of progress. Poirot, we've got a locked room, a dagger, and too many liars. Give me something solid. Patience, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a soothing cadence. The truth, it hides in the shadows, but the little gray cells, they chase it relentlessly. Let us deepen our inquiry. The morning had crept into a gray, rain-soaked noon, the manor's isolation amplifying every creak and whisper. Poirot began with a new discovery. A laboratory analysis, rushed by a constable to a nearby village, revealed the dagger's blade bore traces of a rare poison, aconite, derived from monkshood, a plant native to the manor's gardens. Yet, curiously, the coroner's initial report confirmed death by stabbing, not poison. A complication, Poirot mused aloud. Why poison a blade if the wound is fatal? A precaution or a deception? The revelation sent ripples through the room. Evelyn's hand froze on her sapphire ring. Poison? That's barbaric. Victor's eyes widened, his voice sharp. Someone meant to make sure he was dead. Amelia, clutching her sketchbook, said, Monkshood grows by the fountain. Anyone could have used it. Blackwell grunted. Sounds like overkill. Typical Harrington enemy. Thorough. Lydia's pen scratched rapidly, her face pale. Wilkins, adjusting his cuffs, said nothing, but his tremor returned. Poirot shifted focus to the brass key found near the body. Jap's men had tested it against every known lock in the atrium and study. No match. Perhaps, Poirot suggested, it opened something less obvious. A hidden compartment, a secret safe? He turned to Wilkins. Monsieur, you know this manor's every corner. Is there such a place? Wilkins hesitated, then said, There's an old safe in the study behind a portrait, but it uses a combination, not a key. Poirot's eyes narrowed. We shall see. A new twist emerged. Amelia, under pressure, confessed to a secret. I've been seeing an artist in London, Julian Carter. Father disapproved, threatened to cut me off unless I married sensibly. I needed money to leave. Her voice broke and Lydia squeezed her hand. Poirot tilted his head. And this Julian, did he know of the will? Amelia nodded. I wrote to him about it. But he's in London, not here. The confession sparked accusations. Victor rounded on his sister. You'd kill for some painter? You were sketching that dagger, Amelia fired back. And you'd kill to pay your bookies. Don't play innocent. Blackwell interjected. Harrington's will screwed us all. Doesn't mean we stabbed him. Evelyn, her voice icy, said, Enough. We're family, not savages. Poirot's attention returned to the lilac thread from the ventilation grate. He produced it, holding it to the light. This silk, it is dyed, a rare shade. Madame Evelyn, your wardrobe, it favors such colors, yes? She paled. I own lilac silk, but so do others. I wasn't near the grate. Poirot noted her denial, then turned to Lydia. Mademoiselle, your sketches of the atrium, some show the grate. Why such detail? Lydia stammered. It's atmospheric for my book. Her notebook, when Poirot glanced at it, contained not just sketches but a diagram of the atrium's ventilation system, meticulously labeled. A red herring surfaced. A constable found a cigar stub in the study, half-burned, with Blackwell's brand. You said you smoked in your room, Poirot said sharply. Blackwell bristled. I did. I visited the study earlier before dinner. Must have left it then. His story held, but his scowl deepened. Then came a startling twist. Jap's men discovered a hidden panel in the study wall behind a portrait of Lord Harrington's father. It was locked, not with a combination, but a keyhole matching the brass key's size. Wilkins, visibly shaken, admitted, I didn't know it existed. The manor has secrets. Poirot inserted the key. It turned with a click, revealing a small compartment containing papers, business contracts, one naming Blackwell as a partner in a failed venture, with a clause promising repayment only upon Harrington's death. Blackwell's face reddened. "That's old news. I didn't need to kill him to claim it." The papers also included a letter in Harrington's hand, accusing Wilkins of stealing not just silverware, but a family heirloom, a sapphire brooch. "This," Poirot said, holding it up, "gives motive to our butler. Revenge, perhaps." Wilkins' voice was low. "I never stole. He was wrong to accuse me." The accusations flew. Victor pointed at Blackwell. "You had everything to gain from his death," Blackwell retorted. "And you didn't? Your debts were choking you." Amelia whispered to Lydia, "What if it's one of us, hiding in plain sight?" Lydia's eyes darted to the door as if contemplating escape. Poirot, sensing the rising chaos, called for order. "Mes amis, the clues. They twist. The poison, it was unnecessary. Perhaps a distraction. The key, it opens a secret, but whose? The thread, it points to a presence in the shadows, and the letter, it deepens motives." He paced, his voice deliberate. "But there is more. The candle holder's wax, it suggests movement, a timed act. I suspect a mechanism, a trick to make the impossible possible." A sudden noise interrupted, a crash from the atrium. The group rushed in, finding a ventilation grate dislodged, hanging by a hinge. Below it lay a broken glass vial, its contents evaporated but leaving a faint chemical odor. Not lilac, but bitter, like aconite. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed. The grate, it was used, not for entry, but for something else. "A delivery, perhaps?" Japp growled. "This is getting absurd, Poirot. Poison, keys, secret panels. What next?" Hastings, scribbling furiously, whispered, "It's like a maze, old chap. Every turn's a dead end." Poirot smiled faintly. "Non-Hastings. A maze, yes, but with a path. The murderer, they are clever, but they leave footprints in the wax, the silk, the lies." As the storm trapped them further, the manor's walls seemed to close in. Evelyn's handkerchief was damp with nervous sweat. Victor's pacing grew erratic. Amelia clutched her sketchbook like a shield. Blackwell's cigar trembled in his hand. Lydia's notebook remained closed, her face unreadable. Wilkins's keys jingled faintly, his eyes fixed on the floor. Poirot returned to the atrium, studying the grate, the vial, the wax trail, the locked room. He murmured, "It is a lie. The murderer walked among us, and the clues, they will betray them." Chapter 6. The Revelation. The storm that gripped Candlelight Manor showed no mercy, its winds shrieking against the glass dome of the atrium, where the ghost of Lord Reginald Harrington's murder lingered. The crime scene, now a shrine to tragedy, held its secrets tightly. The blood-stained Persian rug, the jeweled dagger still piercing the victim's back, the toppled candle holder with its cryptic wax trail, and the faint chemical odor from a broken vial found beneath a dislodged ventilation grate. The locked doors and sealed windows mocked any notion of an outsider, while clues, a stopped watch at 11:45, a lilac-scented thread, a mysterious brass key, and a hidden panel, wove a puzzle that Hercule Poirot was determined to unravel. In the drawing-room the fire sputtered, casting fitful light on the assembled suspects. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her sapphire gown creased with worry, Victor pacing like a caged animal, Amelia clutching her sketchbook, Colonel Marcus Blackwell, his cigar smoldering, Miss Lydia Thorne, her notebook shut but her eyes alert, and Mr. Edgar Wilkins, the butler, his keys silent for once. Poirot stood at the center, his egg-shaped head tilted, his green eyes piercing. Captain Arthur Hastings scribbled notes, while Inspector Japp, his patience thinning, growled, "Poirot, we're drowning in clues. Poison, keys, threads. Give me a lead." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a calm cadence. "The clues, they are like stars in a cloudy sky. One must wait for the clouds to part, and part they shall." His mustache twitched, a sign his little gray cells were humming. The day had crept into a sodden afternoon, the manor's isolation amplifying every tension. Poirot began with the broken vial, its bitter odor suggesting aconite, the same poison found on the dagger. "This vial," he said, holding it up, "it fell from the grate. Was it dropped by accident or placed to deceive?" He turned to Wilkins. "Monsieur, you spoke of loose grates. Could someone have used it to deliver poison or something else? Wilkins' face paled, his tremor returning. The grates are old, sir. A servant might have dislodged it cleaning. I know nothing of vials. His denial was firm, but his eyes flicked to the door. Poirot shifted to the brass key, which had unlocked a hidden panel in the study containing contracts and a letter accusing Wilkins of theft. This letter, Poirot said, producing it, suggests a motive for you, Wilkins. Revenge for a false accusation. Yet the key, it is not yours, yes? Wilkins nodded stiffly. I've never seen it before. A new revelation shook the room. Amelia, her voice trembling, admitted, I found something in the library yesterday, a sketchbook, not mine, hidden behind a shelf. It had diagrams of the atrium's ventilation system, like Lydia's, but older, with notes about timing devices. She produced it, its pages yellowed, the diagrams precise. Lydia gasped. That's not mine. I only sketched for my novel. Poirot examined it, noting the handwriting, similar to Harrington's but not identical. This, he said, suggests planning, but whose? The discovery sparked chaos. Victor rounded on Lydia. You're no cousin, spying, plotting. Those sketches prove it. Lydia's eyes blazed. I'm family. My sketches are fiction, not murder. Evelyn intervened, her voice sharp. Stop this bickering. Reginald's dead, and you're tearing us apart. Blackwell snorted. Maybe one of you wanted him gone more than you admit. Poirot's attention turned to the lilac thread from the grate. He produced a swatch of silk from Evelyn's wardrobe obtained by a constable. Madam, this matches. Were you near the grate? Evelyn's composure cracked. I told you I wasn't there. Someone could have taken my scarf. Her denial was desperate, and Blackwell's hand on her arm tightened, prompting a glare from Victor. A twist emerged. Japp's men found a faint burn mark on the atrium's rug near the wax trail, suggesting a fuse or chemical reaction. Poirot knelt by it, his gloved hands tracing the scorched fibers. This burn, he said, it is not from a candle, perhaps a device, timed to release the vial or to move the dagger. He tested the theory, noting the wax trail aligned with the burn, as if something had been pulled across the floor. The suspect's alibis began to crumble. Victor admitted he'd lied about his garden walk. He'd been in the billiard room, alone, thinking. No witnesses. Amelia confessed she'd visited the atrium at 11 a.m. to sketch, not earlier, placing her closer to the murder. Blackwell's cigar stub in the study was joined by another find, a matchbook with his initials near the atrium's private door. I was there earlier, he insisted, but his voice wavered. Lydia's notebook revealed more than sketches. A cryptic note, 11:45, in sure silence. She claimed it was a story idea, but Poirot's eyes narrowed. Mademoiselle, your stories, they are too close to truth. Lydia flushed, her fingers clutching her pen. The biggest revelation came when Poirot re-examined the hidden panel's contracts. One document, overlooked initially, was a codicil to Harrington's will, dated a week prior. It named Lydia as a potential heir to a small estate in Devon, but only if she proved legitimate descent, a claim Harrington had disputed. This, Poirot said, holding it up, gives Mademoiselle Thorne a motive. Did you know, Mademoiselle? Lydia's face crumpled. I suspected, but I didn't kill him. I only wanted answers. The room erupted. Victor shouted, She's a fraud, after our inheritance. Amelia defended her. She's family, Victor, unlike your creditors, Evelyn whispered. Reginald never mentioned this, Blackwell growled. Another of his games pitting us against each other. Wilkins remained silent, but his keys jangled faintly. Poirot called for order, his voice cutting through the din. Mes amis, the puzzle shifts, the vial, the burn, the codicil. They point to a plan, meticulous and cruel. The dagger, it was not thrown. It was placed perhaps by a mechanism through the grate. The poison, it was a distraction, for the stab was enough. And the codicil, it lights new fires of motive. A sudden movement caught his eye. Wilkins, stepping toward the door, dropped a small tool, a screwdriver, its tip stained with wax. Monsieur Wilkins, Poirot said sharply, you adjust grates, perhaps, or more? Wilkins froze. I was fixing a hinge. The storm loosened things. His excuse was weak, and the room's eyes turned on him. Hastings whispered, Poirot, it's coming together. The grate, the wax, the tool. Someone rigged the murder. Poirot nodded. "Oui, Hastings. The locked room, it is a lie. The murderer used the manor's own secrets, the grates, the shadows, to strike." Japp, exasperated, said, "Then who, Poirot? We've got motives for all of them." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The who, it emerges, but first, the how. The wax trail, the burn, the vial, they tell of a device timed to perfection. And the codicil, it reveals a heart driven by betrayal." As the storm raged, the manor's walls seemed to pulse with secrets. Evelyn's handkerchief was damp with tears. Victor's pacing stopped, his face pale. Amelia's sketchbook lay open, a diagram mirroring the old one. Blackwell's cigar fell, ash scattering. Lydia's eyes darted to the window as if seeking escape. Wilkins' hand hovered near his keys, his composure fraying. Poirot returned to the atrium, studying the grate, the burn, the wax. "The revelation," he murmured. "It is near. The murderer thought to hide in the candlelight, but Poirot, he sees through the dark." Chapter 7. Justice served. The storm over Candlelight Manor raged with unrelenting fury, its winds howling like a chorus of accusations against the glass dome of the atrium where Lord Reginald Harrington's murder had cast a pall over the grand estate. The crime scene, preserved by Inspector Japp's constables, was a grim tableau. The blood-soaked Persian rug, the jeweled dagger embedded in the victim's back, the toppled candle holder with its cryptic wax trail, and the broken vial beneath a dislodged ventilation grate, its bitter aconite odor a lingering taunt. The locked doors and sealed windows defied logic, while clues, a stopped watch at 11:45, a lilac-scented thread, a mysterious brass key, a hidden panel, and a burn mark pointed to a meticulously planned crime. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective, was closing in on the truth, his little gray cells humming with purpose. In the drawing room the fire crackled weakly, its warmth no match for the chill of suspicion. The suspects, Lady Evelyn Harrington, Victor, Amelia, Colonel Marcus Blackwell, Miss Lydia Thorne, and Mr. Edgar Wilkins, sat or stood in tense silence, their faces a gallery of fear, defiance, and guilt. Poirot stood at the center, his egg-shaped head tilted, his green eyes piercing through the shadows of deceit. Captain Arthur Hastings, notebook in hand, watched with bated breath, while Japp, his patience worn thin, muttered, "Poirot, you've got clues up to your mustache. Tell me we're close to nabbing someone." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a soothing cadence. "The net, it tightens. The truth, it is like a candle in the dark. It flickers, but it will not be extinguished." His mustache twitched, a sign of imminent revelation. The afternoon had deepened into a gray, rain-soaked dusk, the manor's isolation amplifying every creak and whisper. Poirot began by addressing the ventilation grate and the vial. "The grate," he said, holding up the lilac thread. "It was no accident. The vial, with its aconite, was placed or dropped to suggest poison. Yet the stab was fatal. A distraction, yes." He turned to Wilkins. "Monsieur, your screwdriver, stained with wax, suggests you tampered with the grate. Why?" Wilkins' face paled, his keys jingling faintly. "I was repairing it, as I said. The storm loosened it." His voice was steady, but his eyes darted to the door, betraying nerves. Poirot produced the brass key which had unlocked the study's hidden panel. "This key," he said, "opened a compartment with a codicil, naming Mademoiselle Thorne as a potential heir, yet it fits no other lock. Curious, non?" He turned to Lydia. "You knew of this codicil, mademoiselle?" Lydia's hazel eyes widened. "I suspected, but I didn't kill him. I only wanted my place in the family." The codicil had sparked chaos, and Poirot seized the moment to press further. He revealed a new find. A servant had discovered a small pulley mechanism hidden in the atrium's ventilation shaft, its wires coated with wax matching the candle holder's trail. "This," Poirot said, holding up a diagram from Amelia's sketchbook, "shows how the dagger was delivered, a pulley timed to pull the blade through the grate, striking Monsieur Harrington from above." "The locked room, it is a lie." The room gasped. Evelyn clutched her handkerchief. "A mechanism? That's diabolical." Victor's jaw dropped. "You mean someone rigged the atrium like a trap?" Amelia's hands trembled, her sketchbook falling open to a similar diagram. Blackwell growled, "Preposterous. Who'd know how to build that?" Lydia's pen froze, her face pale. Wilkins' keys fell silent, his posture rigid. Poirot turned to Amelia. Mademoiselle, your sketchbook. It mirrors the old diagrams found in the library. Did you study them? Amelia flushed. I found them inspiring for my art. I didn't build anything. Her voice cracked and Lydia squeezed her hand, whispering, "It's all right." A twist deepened the mystery. Poirot revealed the burn mark on the rug was not from a fuse, but from a chemical reaction. Aconite mixed with a catalyst, likely dropped from the vial to create a distraction. The murderer, he said, wished us to focus on poison, not the pulley, a clever ruse. Accusations flew. Victor pointed at Wilkins. You had access to the grates, the tools. You hated father for accusing you. Wilkins snapped, and you stood to gain the manor. Don't pin this on me. Evelyn's voice trembled. This is madness. Reginald was cruel, but not to deserve this. Blackwell muttered, someone wanted us all chasing shadows. Poirot's gaze settled on Lydia. Mademoiselle Thorne, your notebook, your note about 11:45, ensure silence. It aligns with the watch's time. Explain. Lydia's voice shook. It was for my novel, a plot point, I swear. But her eyes betrayed fear, and Poirot noted a cipher in her notebook, a simple substitution code spelling grate and dagger. The final revelation came swiftly. Poirot returned to the atrium, examining the pulley's wires. They were threaded with silk, lilac silk, matching Evelyn's scarf. Madame, he said, confronting her, your scent, your silk, they place you at the grate. Evelyn's composure shattered. I lost my scarf days ago. Someone stole it. But her tears rang hollow, and Blackwell's protective stance faltered. Poirot gathered the suspects in the atrium, the candlelight casting long shadows. Mesdames et messieurs, he declared, the murderer is among us. The pulley, it was rigged by one who knew the manor's secrets. The codicil, it provoked desperation. The lilac thread, the wax, the vial, they point to one hand. His eyes locked on Wilkins. Monsieur Wilkins, it was you. The room stilled. Wilkins' face crumpled. You're mad, Poirot. I served faithfully. But Poirot pressed on. You were accused of theft, a lie that threatened your pension. You knew the manor's grates, its mechanisms. You rigged the pulley, using wax to guide the dagger, pulled through the grate at 11:45, as the watch confirms. The vial, it was your distraction, dropped to suggest poison. The lilac thread stolen from Madame Evelyn's scarf was your mistake. Wilkins staggered, his keys clattering to the floor. I couldn't let him ruin me. 40 years, and he called me a thief. His confession spilled out. Anger at the accusation, fear of poverty, a plan hatched in desperation. He'd used his knowledge of the manor's ventilation system, rigging a pulley with wires and wax, timing it to strike Harrington as he stood beneath the grate. Jap clapped handcuffs on Wilkins, who went quietly, his head bowed. Evelyn sobbed, Amelia comforting her. Victor's face was grim, his debts now his burden. Blackwell muttered, poor fool. Lydia closed her notebook, her claim unresolved, but her innocence clear. Poirot turned to Hastings, his voice soft. The little grey cells, they triumph. The locked room, it was no match for logic. Hastings nodded, awed. Brilliant old chap, but that pulley, devilish clever. As the storm began to ease, the manor exhaled, its secrets laid bare. Justice, in the form of Poirot's relentless deduction, had been served. Chapter 8. The Net Tightens. The storm that had battered Candlelight Manor was finally easing, its howls softening to a mournful whisper as the first rays of twilight pierced the clouds. The atrium where Lord Reginald Harrington had met his end stood silent, its glass dome reflecting a muted sky. The crime scene, now cleared of the body but not its echoes, held the weight of a tragedy resolved, yet unresolved. The blood-stained rug had been removed, but the jeweled dagger, toppled candle holder, and dislodged ventilation grate remained as testaments to a meticulously planned murder. Hercule Poirot's revelation of Mr. Edgar Wilkins as the killer, using a pulley to deliver the fatal blow through the grate, had shattered the manor's fragile peace, but questions lingered and the air was thick with unspoken truths. In the drawing room, the fire burned low, casting flickering shadows on the faces of the remaining guests. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her sapphire gown now a symbol of mourning. Victor, his defiance replaced by a hollow stare. Amelia, clutching her sketchbook like a lifeline. Colonel Marcus, Blackwell, his cigar unlit, and Miss Lydia Thorne, her notebook closed, but her eyes restless. Inspector Japp, his cuffs still on Wilkins, who sat slumped in a corner, prepared to escort the butler to the village jail once the roads cleared. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever Poirot's shadow, stood by the detective, his notebook filled with the case's twists. Poirot, he whispered, you've done it again, but the family, they're still broken. Oui, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice a gentle cadence, his green eyes scanning the room. Justice, it is served, but the heart, it heals slowly, and perhaps there is more to uncover. His mustache twitched, a sign his little gray cells were not yet at rest. The evening had settled into a tense quiet, the manor's isolation no longer a trap, but a mirror reflecting the fractured bonds among its inhabitants. Poirot, standing before the group, addressed the aftermath. Mesdames et messieurs, the crime, it is solved. Monsieur Wilkins, driven by a false accusation of theft, rigged a pulley to strike Lord Harrington, using the ventilation grate, the wax trail, and a stolen lilac thread to mislead. But the manor, it holds more secrets. Let us speak of them. Evelyn, her auburn hair loose, spoke first, her voice trembling. Wilkins, I never imagined he could do this. Reginald was harsh, but to kill, her fingers twisted her sapphire ring, and Poirot noted a flicker of guilt in her eyes, not for the murder, but for something deeper. Victor, his face gaunt, muttered, Father pushed everyone too far. Debts, accusations, he made enemies. His hands, once clenched, now hung limp, as if the weight of his inheritance was too much to bear. Amelia's voice was soft but firm. Wilkins served us for decades. Father's accusation, it broke him. But what now? The manor's ours, but it feels cursed. Her sketchbook lay open, a half-finished drawing of the atrium, its grate ominously detailed. Blackwell, his ruddy face pale, said, Harrington owed me, but I didn't want him dead. Wilkins, he fooled us all. His cigar remained unlit, a sign of his unease. Lydia, her hazel eyes darting, spoke cautiously. The codicil, my claim, it wasn't worth murder. I just wanted to belong. Her notebook, Poirot noticed, was clutched tightly, as if hiding one last secret. Wilkins, handcuffed, lifted his head. I've said my piece. I killed him for my honor, not greed. Do what you must. His voice was steady, but his eyes held a flicker of regret. Poirot's gaze swept the room. The murder, it is solved, but the motives, they run deeper. Let us examine the loose threads. He produced the codicil from the hidden panel, naming Lydia as a potential heir. Mademoiselle Thorne, you suspected this, yes? Yet you hid your full story. Lydia's face crumpled. I'm his daughter, illegitimate, from a liaison years ago. I came to prove it, not to kill. The room gasped. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Reginald? A child? Victor's eyes blazed. A fraud! You're after our money! Amelia, softer, said, If it's true, she's family. Poirot nodded. The codicil, it confirms a blood test was planned. Harrington knew, but disputed it. This, it fueled your desperation, mademoiselle, but not your guilt. Lydia's tears fell, her notebook dropping to reveal a letter, her mother's detailing the affair. It was authentic, and Poirot's nod confirmed its weight. A new thread unraveled. Evelyn confessed a secret of her own. Reginald and I, we were distant. I had an affair with Marcus, Colonel Blackwell, last year. Reginald knew, threatened to expose us. Blackwell's face reddened. It was over. I didn't kill him for it. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet your cigar stub, your matchbook, they placed you near the crime. A red herring, perhaps, but your silence, it was telling. The revelation stirred the room. Victor accused Evelyn. You betrayed father, and now this? Did you help Wilkins? Evelyn snapped. I loved him despite everything. Amelia defended her mother. She's no killer, Victor. Stop tearing us apart. Poirot turned to the brass key, the pulley, and the lilac thread. These clues, they were Wilkins' undoing. The key, it opened the panel, revealing motives. The thread, stolen from Madame Evelyn, was his misstep. The pulley, his genius. A timed mechanism, using wax to guide the dagger through the grate at 11:45, as the watch confirms. He paused, addressing Wilkins. But why the aconite, monsieur? The poison, it was unnecessary. Wilkins' voice was low. I wanted them to think it was poison, not a stab. A distraction to buy time. His confession was final, sealing his fate. Japp, satisfied, prepared to depart with Wilkins, but Poirot raised a hand. "One moment, Inspector, there is another matter." He produced a small sapphire brooch found in Wilkins' quarters during a final search. It is the heirloom Lord Harrington accused you of stealing. You kept it, yes?" Wilkins nodded, defeated. "I found it, thought it was mine to keep after years of service. He called me a thief and I snapped." The brooch tied the motive together, not just the accusation, but the humiliation of a loyal servant. Evelyn gasped. "That was my mother's. Reginald used it to wound us all." Amelia whispered, "It's why he was so cruel, to control us." Poirot addressed the family. "The manor, it is yours now, but its secrets, they are laid bare. Madame Evelyn, your heart strayed, but it is not criminal. Monsieur Victor, your debts, they are a burden, not a crime. Mademoiselle Amelia, your dreams, they are free now. Colonel Blackwell, your losses, they are not avenged by blood. Mademoiselle Lydia, your claim, it is yours to pursue, legally." As Japp led Wilkins away, the butler's final words echoed, "I served, and I broke. Forgive me." The family stood in silence, the weight of loss and truth settling over them. Victor approached Lydia, his voice low. "If you're truly family, we'll sort it out." Amelia nodded, her hand on her mother's shoulder. Evelyn, tears falling, whispered, "We'll rebuild." Poirot turned to Hastings, his voice soft. "The net, it has closed, mon ami. The manor breathes again, though its scars remain." Hastings nodded, awed. "You saw through it all, Poirot. The pulley, the motives. Brilliant." As the storm's last gusts faded, the manor felt lighter, its shadows less oppressive. Justice had been served, but the healing, Poirot knew, would take longer than his deduction. Chapter 9. The Revelation. The storm that had held Candlelight Manor in its grip had finally broken, leaving a sky streaked with rose and gold as dusk settled over the Sussex countryside. The atrium, where Lord Reginald Harrington had been stabbed in an impossible crime, was no longer a crime scene but a place of quiet mourning. The blood-stained rug was gone, the jeweled dagger removed to evidence, and the toppled candle holder righted, its wax trail swept away. Yet the ventilation grate, dislodged by the murderer's pulley, hung as a silent reminder of the manor's secrets. The clues, stopped watch at 11:45, lilac-scented thread, brass key, hidden panel, aconite vial, and burn mark, had led Hercule Poirot to unmask Mr. Edgar Wilkins as the killer, driven by a false accusation of theft. But the manor's wounds ran deeper, and Poirot sensed one final truth awaited. In the drawing room, the fire burned steadily now, casting a warm glow on the remaining guests. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her sapphire gown replaced by somber black. Victor, his defiance softened into introspection. Amelia, her sketchbook open to a new drawing. Colonel Marcus Blackwell, his cigar replaced by a glass of brandy. And Miss Lydia Thorne, her notebook tucked away, her hazel eyes weary but hopeful. Inspector Japp had departed with Wilkins, now en route to face justice in London. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by Poirot, his notebook closed, his face a mix of awe and relief. "Poirot," he whispered, "you've solved the impossible, but the family, they're still adrift." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice a gentle cadence, his green eyes gleaming with purpose. "The crime, it is solved, but the heart of Candlelight Manor, it seeks closure. Tonight we weave the final threads." His mustache twitched, a sign his little gray cells were poised for one last revelation. The evening had settled into a fragile calm, the manor's isolation no longer oppressive but reflective, as if the walls themselves exhaled. Poirot gathered the group in the atrium, where the candles burned low, their light softer now, less accusing. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his tone deliberate, "the murder of Lord Harrington, it was a tragedy of pride and betrayal. Monsieur Wilkins, he struck with a pulley through the grate, driven by a false accusation. But the manor, it holds one final secret, a truth that binds you all." He produced a sealed envelope found in the study's hidden panel during a final sweep by Japp's constables. "This," he said, "is a letter from Lord Harrington, written days before his death. It was meant for you, his family." He broke the seal, his voice steady as he read. "To my wife, children, and those I've wronged. My accusations were hasty, my trust misplaced. Wilkins, I wronged you. The brooch was a test, not theft. Evelyn, I forgive your heart's wanderings. Victor, your debts are mine to bear. Amelia, your art is your freedom. Lydia, my daughter, your claim is true. I plan to make amends, but time may outrun me. The room stilled, the words sinking in like rain on parched earth. Evelyn's tears fell silently, her hand clutching Amelia's. He knew, and he forgave? Victor's voice was hoarse. Why didn't he say this sooner? Amelia's eyes shimmered. He saw my art. He understood. Lydia, trembling, whispered, I'm his daughter. He acknowledged me. Blackwell, his brandy untouched, muttered, the old fox. He played us all, even in death. Poirot continued, addressing the clues that had unraveled the crime. The pulley, it was Wilkins's genius, using wax to guide the dagger through the grate at 11:45, as the watch confirms. The lilac thread, stolen from Madame Evelyn's scarf, was his error, linking the grate to the crime. The aconite vial, it was a distraction, dropped to suggest poison when the stab was enough. The brass key, it opened the panel, revealing motives, Wilkins' shame, Lydia's claim. The burn mark, it was no fuse but a chemical ruse to mislead. He turned to the family, his voice softening. The codicil, it was no lie. Mademoiselle Lydia, you are a Harrington. The letter, it confirms your mother's story. But the manner, it is not defined by blood alone. You, all of you, must choose its future. Evelyn spoke, her voice steady despite her tears. We've lost so much. Reginald, trust, peace. But we can rebuild. Lydia, you're welcome here. Victor nodded, his defiance gone. I'll settle my debts, sell what I must. The manor stays with us. Amelia, her sketchbook open to a drawing of the atrium, said, I'll stay, paint, make this place alive again. Lydia's eyes brimmed. I just wanted a family. I'll prove my place, not take it. Blackwell, his voice gruff, raised his glass. To Harrington, flawed but ours, and to you, Poirot, for seeing through the fog. The group murmured agreement, a fragile unity forming. Poirot addressed one final loose end, the sapphire brooch, the catalyst for Wilkins' rage. This, he said, holding it up, was no theft. Lord Harrington used it to test loyalty, a cruel game. Wilkins, he broke under its weight. He handed it to Evelyn, who clutched it like a relic. It's my mother's, she whispered. I'll keep it for her, not him. A subtle twist emerged. Poirot revealed a cipher in Lydia's notebook, overlooked earlier, decoding to forgive him. Mademoiselle, he said, you knew of your father's letter? Lydia nodded, tears falling. My mother told me he might soften. I wrote it as a hope, not a plan. The cipher, a red herring in the crime, was a poignant clue to her heart. The family's resolve grew. Victor proposed selling a London property to fund Amelia's art and settle Blackwell's losses. Evelyn offered Lydia a room in the manor, a gesture of inclusion. Amelia sketched a new vision, a gallery in the atrium open to the public. For father, she said, and for us. Poirot stepped back, his work nearly done. The manor, it is no longer a cage. You have faced its secrets, debts, affairs, lineage, and chosen to heal. Justice, it is not only for the courts, but for the soul. His eyes lingered on the atrium's candles, their flames steady now, no longer flickering with deceit. Hastings, closing his notebook, said, You've outdone yourself, Poirot. A locked room, a pulley, a family reborn. Remarkable. Poirot smiled faintly. The little grey cells, they see not only crime, but humanity, mon ami. As night fell, the manor breathed easier, its shadows softer, its wounds beginning to mend. The candles burned on, a quiet promise of light after darkness. Chapter 10, A New Dawn. The storm that had besieged Candlelight Manor had finally passed, leaving the Sussex countryside bathed in a soft, golden light as the sun rose over the rolling hills. The manor's ivy-clad walls stood resolute, their scars hidden beneath the morning's glow. But the atrium, once the stage for Lord Reginald Harrington's murder, now felt like a sanctuary reclaimed. The blood-stained rug was gone, the jeweled dagger taken as evidence, and the ventilation grate, Sight of the deadly pulley had been sealed. The clues, stopped watch at 11:45, lilac-scented thread, brass key, aconite vial, burn mark, and hidden panel had been woven into a tapestry of truth by Hercule Poirot, revealing Mr. Edgar Wilkins as the murderer driven by a false accusation of theft. Yet the Manor's heart still beat with the echoes of betrayal, forgiveness, and hope. In the library, a room untouched by the crime's shadow, the remaining guests gathered for a final reckoning. The shelves, lined with leather-bound tomes, glowed under the morning light filtering through tall windows. Lady Evelyn Harrington, dressed in a simple gray dress, sat by a table, her auburn hair softly pinned, her sapphire ring replaced by a plain band. Victor, no longer pacing, leaned against a bookcase, his face weary but resolute. Amelia, her sketchbook open to a vibrant drawing of the Manor's garden, stood near a window, her dark curls catching the sun. Colonel Marcus Blackwell, his military bearing softened, sipped coffee instead of brandy, his cigar days behind him. Miss Lydia Thorne, now acknowledged as Harrington's daughter, sat with a quiet dignity, her notebook replaced by a letter, her mother's, proving her lineage. Hercule Poirot, his egg-shaped head tilted, his green eyes serene, stood by the fireplace, while Captain Arthur Hastings, his notebook tucked away, smiled faintly at his friend's triumph. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice a warm cadence. "The crime, it is solved. Monsieur Wilkins, he struck with cunning, using the Manor's secrets against its master. But Candlelight Manor, it is more than a place of death. It is a home, and you, its family, must now write its future." His mustache curved slightly, a sign of satisfaction not just in justice, but in renewal. Evelyn spoke first, her voice steady, despite the weight of grief. "Reginald's letter, it changed everything. He saw our flaws, our pain, and still chose forgiveness. I'll honor that." She looked at Lydia, her eyes softening. "You're part of us now, Lydia. No more secrets." Lydia, her hazel eyes brimming, nodded. "I came for answers, not wealth. To be family, that's enough." She clutched her mother's letter, its words now validated by Harrington's codicil, which Poirot had ensured was legally recognized. "I'll stay, help rebuild." Victor, his voice low, said, "I've been a fool, debts, anger, running from father's shadow, but I'll sell the London townhouse, clear what I owe, and keep the Manor alive." His gaze met Amelia's, a rare moment of sibling unity. "For us and for him." Amelia smiled, her sketchbook open to a plan for an atrium gallery. "I'm turning father's space into something living, a place for art, for visitors. He'd hate it, but he'd understand." Her laughter was soft, healing. "Lydia, will you help me paint it?" Lydia's nod was fervent, sealing their bond. Blackwell, his gruffness tempered, raised his coffee cup. "Harrington owed me, but he paid in his way. I'll take my share and leave you to it. This Manor's yours now." His eyes lingered on Evelyn, a silent acknowledgement of their past, now buried. Poirot, observing the exchange, nodded. "The Manor, it breathes again. The secrets, debts, affairs, lineage, they are no longer chains. You have chosen light over shadow." He produced a small item from his pocket, a single candle unlit from the atrium. "This," he said, "is a symbol. The candlelight, it hid the crime, but now it can guide you." He recounted the case's resolution for clarity, his voice slow and deliberate. "Monsieur Wilkins, driven by the false accusation of stealing a sapphire brooch, rigged a pulley through the ventilation grate. The wax trail guided the dagger, striking at 11:45, as the watch confirmed. The lilac thread stolen from Madame Evelyn betrayed him. The aconite vial, a distraction to suggest poison. The brass key, it opened the hidden panel, revealing the codicil and his motive. Humiliation, not greed. The burn mark, a chemical ruse, misled us briefly. But the truth, it shone through." Evelyn's voice trembled. "The brooch, it was my mother's. Reginald used it to test us, to control us. I see that now." She placed it on the table, a gesture of letting go. Victor added, "Wilkins served us for decades. Father's cruelty pushed him too far. I wish I'd seen it." His hands, once clenched, now rested open, a sign of release. Amelia's eyes were on her sketch. "The atrium, it's not cursed, it's where we start anew." Her drawing showed the space filled with color, open to the world. Lydia, her voice soft, said, "Father's letter gave me a name. I'll honor it by staying, not taking. Her acceptance, Poirot noted, was the manor's true redemption. A final surprise emerged, subtle but poignant. Poirot revealed a small bequest found in Harrington's letter for Wilkins's sister, a modest sum for her care in a London hospice. Even in his flaws, Poirot said, Lord Harrington planned amends. This, I have ensured, reaches her. The family nodded, a quiet respect for the gesture. As the morning deepened, the group moved to the manor's gardens, where the air was fresh with the scent of wet earth and blooming roses. The atrium's dome sparkled in the distance, no longer a tomb, but a promise. Evelyn led the way, her steps lighter. Victor and Amelia walked arm in arm, their rivalry softened. Lydia followed, her mother's letter in hand, a smile breaking through. Blackwell lingered behind, his role as outsider clear but accepted. Poirot and Hastings stood by the garden's edge, the manor rising behind them. Mon ami, Poirot said, the crime, it was a mirror of human folly, pride, betrayal, desperation. But the family, they choose to mend. Hastings grinned. You saw it all, Poirot. The pulley, the motives, the healing. Brilliant as always. Poirot's eyes twinkled. The heart of Candlelight Manor, it beats anew. Justice, it is not only for the guilty, but for those who remain. He lit the candle he'd carried, its flame small but steady, and placed it on a garden bench. For the future, he said. As they prepared to depart, the family gathered once more, their faces turned to the manor. The candles in the atrium, relit that morning, glowed softly through the glass, a beacon of renewal. Candlelight Manor, once a stage for murder, was now a home for hope.